What is the purpose of ETL? What it mean by ETL? Anyone?
Extract, transform, and load.
So what is the main purpose of this? Why we where we need to load? Why it is required?
We extract data from
We need
multiple
to load it
sources.
into the enterprise data warehouse.
Good. To load the data into data warehouse, we need ETL, right? We need ETL
ETL.
process. So ETL tools, different types of ETL tools will be available in the market. So generally we have two types: code-based ETL tools, and then GUI based
Based.
ETL tools. Two types of ETL tools is available. Code-based means, for example, like PL SQL, okay, SSAS. These are the code-based ETL tools example. So for code-based ETL tools, we need to know the coding language. If it is PL SQL, we need to know the PL SQL language, right? If it is SSAS, we need to know the particular language, like that. GUI based means graphical user interface. GUI means, as we know, that graphical user interface. Here no need to learn any code, so that particular developer no need to learn any code. Here the thing is, we need to understand the functionality and internally how the objects is using internally. Everything will be inbuilt, right? Everything will be inbuilt. It's ready to use. It's ready to use. So these things, GUI based ETL tools, example, Informatica,
Yeah.
data stage, okay, ab initio. So many ETL tools is available in the market. Around 12 to 15 ETL tools is available, or along with the open source. Okay, so in these ETL tools, main in data warehousing projects, around 60 to 70% of the projects, they are using Informatica as a ETL tool. So I will discuss Informatica here. What it mean by Informatica, what it will do. If anyone asks what is Informatica, what is your answer? What will be your answer for them? As you know, Informatica is a ETL tool, right? Everyone can tell
Yes.
that
Right.
Informatica is a ETL tool. So we can say the same thing. So Informatica is a GUI based ETL tool. It helps to load the data into data warehouse, right? The purpose of Informatica is it's a ETL tool to load the data into data warehouse generally, right? So with the help of ETL, we will do the data acquisition process. Acquisition means nothing but extraction, transformation, and loading. Acquisition means, one second, extraction, transformation, and then loading. The help of Informatica, we can do the ETL process. To it helps to load the data into data warehouse, right? So Informatica, we have mainly four components. Four main components we have in Informatica. So here, these are the client components. We can call it as a client components. So one by one we will discuss. One is designer, and second one is, sorry, workflow manager, workflow and that one is workflow monitor, workflow monitor, and fourth one is repository, repository manager. Okay, in general terms, what it mean by the repository?
A place where we store.
Yes,
It contains metadata.
Yeah, good. It contains metadata. It will contains all the objects. What all the objects is required for this process. Each and every objects it will contain in the repository. It contains basically the metadata. All the necessary information will be there in the repository manager. It's like a storage, right? It will store everything. But and here designer means here we will create mappings. I will tell you what is mapping. Mapping means data flow diagram.
Bus-
Mapping
Yeah.
means DFD, data flow diagram. It means from source to
Target.
target, how we are
Target.
loading the data. This data flow diagram will show us how we are processing. In between, what all the transformations we are using. Transformation is nothing but to use, we need to transform the data, right? So for that purpose,
Yeah.
here in the Informatica tool, we have some default inbuilt transformations will be available. So like for
Yeah.
example,
That
filter transformation.
SQL qualifier.
Yes, source qualifier transformation, aggregator transformation, joiner transformation. So these kind of transformations will be available in Informatica. So here with the help of source, transformation and then target. So here in with the help of designer tool, we will create a mappings here or data flow diagram. So it means source to target, how the data is flowing. It means we need to create a structure here, source structure. These sources and targets, where it will be? It will be in the database, right? It will be in the
Yes.
database. So to move the business things, so to move the apply the business logic from source to target, we will implement in between one transformation, any business logic. With the help of transformation we will implement. So to implement these, we need source, we need target, and then we need transformation. So here source structure we need and target structure we required at the same time. And workflow manager, we will create sessions and workflows. I will
Session.
tell you what it means by the sessions
Workflow.
and workflows. Session means it's a engine, call it's
Yeah.
a engine. So it will contain all the information
All the.
about source and targets, about from where it should pick, from which database we need to pick the data into the sources, from which database we need to load. Suppose we are picking the data from source table from Oracle database, we are loading the data into the target table. This target table will be in the some other DB2 database. So all this information will be available in the session. So what is the source and what is the target? Database connections will be available in the session. And then workflow means it will trigger the job, like to schedule. If you want to schedule something at that particular period of time, we can use workflow.
Work.
Workflow. And then monitor, to view the status. Monitor means to view the status. So
Status.
the best example I will tell you, then you can like it will be clear
Sir,
what.
uh,
Yeah,
it will be for monitoring as well as we can see the logs and bad data
yes,
informations
exactly.
and as well, right?
Yes, exactly, I will tell you. I'm looking for that. Okay, and now tell me, if you take a example of the
Yeah.
train, what all the things will be available in the train?
Under the
Engine
train,
bogies,
engine,
Good. Engine.
engine,
compartments,
bogies,
Okay. And then
and uh, then like we
operator
can
required,
also
right?
say like operation.
Operator,
Yeah.
it means driver, operator. Okay.
Right.
And then
Ticket checker.
okay, good. Okay. if you want to know where the train is located, so where the train is coming, how they came to know?
Yeah.
They will have one monitoring system, right? In that monitoring
Right.
system, like monitoring operation uh, department will be there. In that particular thing, they came to know at what time train is receiving this particular station, right? At what time train is coming to this particular station, how many hours it's delayed, everything will be there in the monitor station, right? Monitoring station, they are going to update each and every information about that particular train status to everywhere, right? Generally. So now, bogies means, what's the purpose of bogies here?
To carry passengers load.
Yes, to carry passengers
Yeah.
or to carry the goods, right? It will carry passengers or it will carry the goods. Bogies
Got
means,
it.
generally it's a structure, right? It's structure, that's it. So we will not have, it will from one place to one place, it will carry the passengers or it will carry the goods. Bogies means it's a structure, right? Generally. The same thing, bogies here, designer. In the designer, we will create mappings, right? The same way here, bogies, same thing. So, but we don't have any data. We will not have any data in the bogies, right? Until unless passengers
Right.
will come into the bogies or goods will come into the bogies. So, bogies is a structure. The same way here also, we will create a structures, source and target structure. This is the source and this is the target. In between, this is the transformation. Just we are creating structure, but this structure, it will not contain any data. Remember this. Just we are doing data flow diagram, how the data should flow from source to target. Clear, right?
Right.
Any
Yes, sir.
confusion? No, right? So this one, it's a just structure. We will not have any data. It's a data flow diagram, how the data should flows from source to target, like bogies. Bogies, it will contain the like a structure. So whenever the engine moves, then only bogies will move, right? Some
Right.
Yes.
engine should be there to move the bogies, right? Same way, engine is required to move bogies. Once the passengers is get into the
Loaded.
train, loaded, or goods is loaded into the bogies, then the engine is required to run the bogies. Here, session
Workflow.
session is the engine. Okay, like engine will control all the bogies, right? Engine will control all the bogies. So engine will pull all the bogies. So if you want to release some bogies, so we can operate with the engine, right? The same way
Right.
here also, session for in Informatica, it will call it as a session. This session, it will control mapping. It will control the mapping. Okay, so if you want
Yeah.
to, suppose in some particular bogies we need to restrict, so we need no need we need to restrict some passengers, so it will control by the engine. So no, this particular like bogie, it should load like some cages will be, right? It should load only 500 kgs. It should not allow more than that, like that. Okay, the same thing. And in Informatica, it is a, we will call engine as a session. Okay, and then to run the session, what is required?
Workflow manager.
Yes, to run the session, workflow is required. So that is operator, that is we can call it as a operator. This is workflow. Generally, to run the engine, we required driver or operator, right? Without that,
Right.
person, we can't move the train. So we can't move the engine. So here, operator is workflow. And one more thing. Here, this operator he knows at what time we need to start the train, at what time we have to reach that station, right? He knows everything, right? Suppose he parked today, okay, and then tomorrow at this particular time we need to start the train. He will have the schedule, right? He will have the schedule. It means at that particular time, suppose some trains will run weekly once only, right? Weekly once only. So these kind of situations, here what they are doing, they are scheduling. At that particular point of time only we need to run. So who is controlling this one? Operators. It will be in the operator's hand, right? So if the operator starts, then only it will run. The same thing here also. Workflow, we can able to schedule the jobs or schedule the mappings or sessions, anything. We can call here all this process, mapping, session, workflows process. We can call it as a jobs. We can call this thing as a jobs or running the workflow. Running the workflow. Here, if you observe, if you trigger the workflow, it will run the session. Once the session is run, then it will trigger the designer. So same way, once the operator started the engine, operator will start engine, right? Engine will pull the bogies, right? Bogies will contain the
Right.
passengers. The same way, it
Passengers.
will start the workflow here. It will start the session. The session will start mapping. This one is mapping, right? Session will start mapping. Mapping, it contains data. Mapping contains
Data.
the data. Whenever the job started, whenever the job is running, at that moment of time only it will contain the data. When the train is, like, suppose if the train is parked in some junction, it will contain passengers or bogies? No, right? Whenever the train is
No.
moving, then only it will contain the passengers, right? The same way
Yes.
here, whenever the job is running, then only it will pick the data from the sources and then it will
Source.
load the data into the target. The same way
Right.
here, okay, when so when the we are whenever we are not running the job, it will not contain
Hmm.
any data. Just if it is not running, then it's only just it's a structure, that's it.
Okay.
Okay, and then repository, like all the trains, all the engine and trains, where it will be available in the junctions, right? In the
Gen.
junction,
Right.
every train will be available, every train will be there in the junctions. Like that, all the components, suppose engine, bogies, like operators, and then monitoring system, everything will be there in the repository. So junctions. And then monitoring system, workflow monitor. Suppose if the train is, okay, everything is there, train is running, so how come this particular station master or station guys know that at this particular moment of time, at this particular time the train is coming? How they will know? They will view the system, they will view the
No.
status, right? They will view the status
Right.
of that particular train in the monitoring system. They will have each and every information, like how many passengers, okay, is there in the each and every bogie, how many, like seats is still available, right? How many seats is available.
Still
So yeah, everything, all this information is available in the monitoring system. They can monitor each and everything. Suppose this train reached this particular station, in this particular station how many passengers get down from this particular bogies, right? Still how many is available from the source system. For example, from the source to target, in when we are talking about informatica level, From source to target, how many records we are pulling. For example, from the source, 100,000 records we pull. 1000 records is there in the source table. When we are loading into the target table, when the data is moving from source to target, only 900 records, only 900 records
Right.
loaded into the target table. In target table, we have 900 records. In source table, we have 1000
Oh,
records.
Records.
Okay, like this we need to capture each and every information. It will be there in the monitoring system. We can able to view this in the monitoring system. At the same time, we can able to know, if if we take example of train, how much time it takes, right, from source to destination, from one place to another place, how much time it has taken. We can know that, right, when we
Right.
see the monitoring system. The same way here, to run the job, to run this particular job, how much time it takes, it taken. So job time, job time also it will show you in this particular. With the help of monitor, workflow monitor, we can able to view how much time it has taken for that particular, taken for to run the particular job. So how many records from the source it's picked, how many records it's loaded into the target table, each and everything will be available in this particular thing, monitoring system. In designer, what we will do, we will create a mapping, we will create a source and target structures, right? To create mapping, what is required? Source and target structures is required. It means data flow diagram, right? Data flow diagram. And then once
Right.
the mapping is created, what we required? To run the mapping, we required sessions, right? We
yes.
required
Right.
sessions. Session, it contains, it will control all the like sources, targets, and mappings and transformation. It will control all mapping. Mapping is controlled by the session. Okay, once the session is done, what we need to do? Workflow, right?
To view the
We
status.
need a workflow to run the particular session. So everything is there. We need to run the job, right? We need to run the job. How we will run the job? With the help of workflow manager,
Workflow
workflows.
manager.
With the help of workflows, we will trigger the job. Once if we trigger the job, then we need to monitor, right? How much time it has taken, how many records from the source, how many records it's loaded into the target. All these things will be in the, you can able to view in the monitor system, monitor system. And then one more important thing, repository manager, I told you, right? Repository manager. With the help of repository manager, repository repository, we can able to create the folders. We can able to create the folders here. And then at the same time, the help of, in the repositories, it will contain each and everything, right? Each and everything. These repositories is controlled by the Informatica administrators. Admins will be there, Informatica admins. Suppose if you install any software, that particular admins will be there, right? Anything.
Right.
The same way here also, the Informatica admins will be there. Their responsibility is to install Informatica, to configure Informatica, and then to give the users, like to give the permissions to the users, at the same time to create the new users group. So for example, generally if you see any like any other coding language, we will have three environments regularly, right? If you take Java, C, any other language, we will have three environments, like development, right? Development environment and QA environment
Q.
right?
Production.
Environment, at the same time production
Production.
environment will be there. So development environment, why they will separate these three things, development and QA and production? What's the purpose?
Like in the development, we create the logic, like we
Okay,
design it
okay, good.
and do some like do every unit testing, like single unit. In the
Okay,
QA environment, they test it for the business users, and
okay,
in the production, after the successful completion of testing, they deployed it into the production for the business users, so
okay,
that
good.
like we can directly create our jobs and all.
Yes, exactly. The same way here, we have three repositories in Informatica. Remember this thing. We have three repositories will be there in Informatica. One is for the development repository. You can call it as dev repository repo. And another one is QA repository. And another one is production repository. Generally, when we are practicing in here in our local system, when we are practicing, we will have only one repositories, right? With the only one repository, we
Right.
will practice. But in real time, remember, we will have the minimum three repositories will be there. Minimum
Yeah.
three repositories. In some organizations, they will maintain version repository also. I will tell you why
Yeah,
we require
maintain.
version repository to maintain the versionings, just to maintain the versionings. Okay, these three are mandatory: development repository, QA repository, and then production repository. In the development repository, developers will develop jobs. It means mappings, sessions, and then workflows. Developers will develop sessions, mappings, workflows. So all this process we can call it as a jobs. Okay. So once the developers is done the created jobs in the development repository, so they have to move that particular code to the QA repository, right?
Right.
So QA repository, these things here only developers will have the access, will have read and write access,
Right.
right? Read and write access. Here the QA repository, as developers will not have any access, and testers also they will have only read access. Only read access they will have. QA repository, and then production repository, no one will have the access. Only like
Access.
required persons or one or two users they will give the access. That also read access only. That also only read access. As a developers, they will have the access for development repository. Why they will not give write access to the QA repository?
Uh, so you are saying that why developers are not getting the access to the QA repository, right?
Yes, yes,
It's just so that let's say I have developed something in my like
good.
my in under my environment
Mm-hmm.
to the my folder.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have developed that and tested on my as per my practice. So
Okay.
what I do, I just raise a whether it would be a ticket or something, a
Okay.
request,
Good.
so that we can move the data from dev repository to 2A QA, so that QA testers will can have a look into it. They will create some their business cases, so
Hmm.
that they will apply their business rules, whether their every criteria is getting matching as per the business requirements or not. If
Yes.
there is any bugs or something, so that my backup data would not be get refreshed. So that's why we are not getting access to the QA repo.
Yes. Generally, the thing is, we need to like each and every bug. If you have any bugs, we need to maintain the history, right? We need to maintain the
Right.
things. We need to trace it back. If you want to trace it back, what all the bugs is available. Suppose if you have the access, if you have access in QA also, then if they are doing some testing, if after moving the code to the QA repository, we came to know some bug is there. Okay, what we will do? We will jump into the QA repository and directly we will change over there, right? We will change the things.
Exactly.
It will impact some other testing also, right? It will impact on
Right.
some other testing, some other business rules also. So that's why they will not give access in QA repository for the developers. Developers, whatever the access they will have in development repository, whatever the things we need to develop in development repository only. And then once we need have tested everything, tested thoroughly in development environment, then they will raise a request to move the code to the QA repository. Generally these things will be done by the like
Jira
administrators.
request.
Yes, administrators. Generally each and every company will follow some different rules. Some separate team will be there to move that particular code. Okay, how they will move the code and all those things going forward classes I will explain. Okay, from QA, once the QA repository, Q testers, ETL testers will have the access. So they will test it thoroughly. They also have only read access. They will have the access to run. That's it. They will not have any access to designer or workflow
Change.
manager, right? They will not have any access to. In the designer and workflow manager only we will create the things, right? Like designer we will create the
Right.
mapping. In workflow manager we will create the session and workflows, right? They will have only access to run the job. That's it. Apart from that they will not have any other access. Okay, once they have tested thoroughly they will move complete code to the production repository. It means live environment, right? This is the process generally. Okay, and one more thing, you clear, right? What the designer will do, what the workflow manager will do, what the workflow
True.
monitor will do, what it means the repository.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
In at the same time, in the repositories, we will have the folders. It means modules. Suppose in same project, we will have the submodules, right? Suppose
Right.
likewise, in same class, if suppose if you take any like a 10th class or 12th standard, we will have like class is 12th standard, but inside that we will have the different subjects, right? So like math subject,
Right.
like um, science, like language. So the same thing here also, we will have in the same project, we will have the sub modules. In the same repository they will create folders. These folders we can able to create with the repository manager. We can able to create with the repository manager. It depends on the modules. Suppose for example it's a sales module we will create one separate folder, or healthcare module we will create separate module, or banking we will create separate module, separate folder for each and everything. So then whatever the thing is coming into the sales, we will go to this particular sales folder. So if it is a banking project, then we will go to that particular banking folder. Like that we will have the different folders here. Okay, now clear, right? Asma and Neha, any doubts in
Right.
this?
No, sir.
Okay, fine, good. And one more thing, now with the help of Informatica, what we are doing, the main
Loading the
purpose,
Uh,
loading the data into the data warehouse, right? From the
Yeah,
source to
Nice.
target table. In the source, we are picking the data and then we are loading the data into the target table.
that
Where it is, sources and target, where it will be? It will be in the database, right?
Data. Right.
Database.
Sis, it could be database, it could be XML files, right?
Yes, anything. Generally, we will deal with the databases. It can be a
Database.
file
Yes.
system also. It can be a files like
Exactly.
XML files or COBOL files, uh, like this.
CSV files are there.
CSV files, anything. Informatica will support all the file system at the same time, all the databases like DB. It will support DB2. It will support Oracle. It will support Cbase. Okay, it will support Teradata. Almost all the databases it will support. Okay, inside the
Mm.
databases, right? So how Informatica will know from this particular database I need to pick the data. In the session we need to give that DB connections.
Dip-
We will create a
DB
session
connection.
in the workflow manager, right? In workflow manager we will create the session as we discussed, session is the engine, right? So it contains
Right.
all the information. So in session we need to give from this particular database, you need to pick the data. Will give the instructions to Informatica. You need to pick the data for this particular source from this particular database. You need to pick, you need to load data into the target table into this particular database. For example, we pick the data from file and then we are loading the data into the target table. This target table is available in the database or Oracle. So for that we need to give database
Data
connections.
connection.
Okay, database connections at the same time. So once, so when we are, this is in the session level. Okay, and then just a minute, Neha Nasma, I'm getting one
yeah.
call. I have to 2 minutes.
Okay.
Hello. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Who is this? నేను క్లాస్లో ఉన్నాను, మళ్ళీ కాల్ చేస్తాను. Yeah, sorry for that. Okay,
No
these connections, database connections, we will give in the session. And then if you want to
session.
create mapping, if you want to create mapping, this we need source structure, right?
Structure. Right.
Source structure, we require a source structure as like bogies in the train, right? We need a source
Right.
structure. At the same time, target
Target structure.
structure, we required source structure and target structure. So these source structure and target structure, from where we need to import. Informatica, it will not have anything, so we need to import. So these source structure and target structures, it will be available in the database, right? It will be available in
Right.
database. From this database
Databases.
we need to import
Import.
source or import target. With the help of designer we need to import the structures. Source structure we need to import, at the same time target structure we need to import. Okay, clear, right? So source and target structures we need to import in the designer. Once we have imported, we need to create mapping. We need to create a mapping, means data flow diagram from source and transformation and then target. So here
again,
source, and then
transformation,
transformation, and then we will
and
have
then target.
target. Okay, source, transformation, and target. Here, what it mean by the transformation? Why we required?
To
We
apply business logic into the
yes, yeah. Go ahead. Come again one more time. Repeat it.
yeah, it is as the transformation is to transform the business logic. Like
Yes, good.
as we are getting some data in it, like let's say I'm getting marks, so I want an average of the sum of the marks, like
Mm-hmm.
as per the maths. So on the subject basis, what I need to do, like I need to put a function to sum up the subject marks total
Yes.
of that.
Mm-hmm.
So to get that, I will apply a logic of addition or whatever sum. So to do that thing, it is known as transformation, like to apply my business logic into the source data.
Yes, good. So we need to transform the data like ETL extract transform, right? For that to transform the data, we need to implement transformations. As you said, to apply business logics, right? To apply business logics, we need transformations here. So here, inbuilt transformations will be available in Informatica. Inbuilt transformations will available. For example, transformation means it will transform the data, right? One format to another format.
Right, exactly.
Transform data from one format to another format. So it will transform the data from one format to another format. This is the basic thing of transformation. Here we have, like, for example, I will tell some transformations. Filter transformation, name itself, it says what it will do.
Yeah,
Filter, joiner,
router is
yes, router,
aggregator.
aggregator. Okay, now tell me any idea of filter means, what it mean by the filter?
It will filter the data on the basis of what criteria you gave. Let's say if I'm saying it will filter all the values which let's say my column is contains the nationality.
Okay.
So if I have the 100 of countries nationality into the one column, and I'm saying just filter out the like I put it as in Indian, as in filter column to the Indian subject. So it will just filter out the Indian values, like it will carry forward only those values which contains nationality as an Indian. So
Yes,
it will forward
good.
those data only.
Yes, exactly. Whatever the required things is, whatever the things is required, those things only we can take. Remaining things we will drop, right? Generally filter means, if you are doing filter something, if you are filtering something means whatever the necessary things only we are picking, and remaining thing, the wastage, we are not picking. That's the meaning of filter, right? So here also in data wise, as you said, whatever the required data, those data only we will pick. Remaining data we will not process. That is filter transformation. Filter transformation, TR means
Transformation.
transformation. So joiner here, joiner means what it mean by the join? It will
It will
combine both the tables, right?
join.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it will combine both the tables. Suppose if we need to combine two tables, then we need to use joiner
joiner.
transformation. Okay, and then aggregator transformation. If you want to do any calculations or
Aggregation.
mathematical functions, aggregation functions
Yeah.
like sum,
Count,
average, count,
count,
minimum, or
minimum,
maximum,
maximum.
these kind of functions we can able to do with
Right.
aggregator. Okay, router also is one kind of filter. When we are discussing the
Filter.
transformation, I will explain. Okay, and then so these type of different transformations will be available. Each and every transformation have one separate, it will act as a one business logic. Suppose
Business.
if you want to do filter, we can use filter transformation. If you want to do join,
Right.
okay, the business requirement is we need to join the tables, so we need to use
Right.
join a transformation. If you want to calculate something, we need to use aggregator. So like this. And
Aggregator.
then if you want to generate sequence numbers, sequence
Right.
generator transformation will be there.
Gen
Sequence generator, it will generate the sequence numbers. So
C.
like this, we'll have different transformations.
Expression is there. No?
Yes, so many transformations. Okay, so these are all transformations will be available, and these transformations basically two types. We are divided these transformations as two types. One is active transformation,
And
we can
passive.
call it as a active transformation, and another one is passive
Passive.
transformation. Generally, what's the meaning of active in general terms?
Um,
Generally we will, like we will discuss, right, this person is very active, like,
Yes, sir.
right? So what it mean by that?
Who does
uh,
things readily?
Yes,
yeah.
good. Anyone participating very actively,
Really.
right?
Mhm.
If they are participating, then we can call it as a active something. So they are doing something, always they are doing something. So passive means
Who is a little reserved, which does not do
little
things.
result, they will not do things. Passive means generally, like we can say that passive income or active income, right? Passive income means without doing anything, right? They are not
Mhm.
doing anything. So same way here, active transformation and passive transformation. It means active transformation means if the data flows from the transformation, when the data is flows from transformation, if the number of rows changes, okay, or order of the rows changes, then we can call it as a active transformation. For example, we have 100 records, okay, in the source. Once the data flows, these 100 records flows from transformation, any transformation. So input, this is going, right, going into these 100 records, passing through the transformation. Once the records came out from this transformation, we received only 80 records.
So this
Then
one
we
is
can
active.
call it as a active
Act.
transformation. Here what we are doing, the number of records changed, right? When the data flows from the transformation, number of records changed. Suppose the best example is filter. If suppose if you
Right.
take any employee table, in the employee table, if you want to filter age age greater than 59 or 60, these persons are going to retire, right? So we don't want
Right.
this person, so we are filtering. So here the number of records will change, right, when the data flows from this filter
Right.
transformation. So before filter, after the filter, the number of records will change, right? So these type of transformation, we can call it as a active transformation. Best example is filter. We can say it's a filter. At the same time, active means not only the number of records, and at the same time
Or
order
order.
also. If the order also mismatched, suppose now For example, employee name, ID, job. We have employee name ABC, ID 121, job manager, and then anything clerk, and then okay. Now this is the order in the table, in source table. This is the order. Once this thing flows from the transformation, any transformation, here we'll use any transformation. For example, we can take it like union or anything. Okay, union transformation or anything, and the data flows from there. Then order will change. Suppose this one will come first. Now this one, this first record, this is the first record, and then okay, fine, this one came first,
So
and then this one, yeah, just a minute, this one came next, and this one came next. Now observe the order change, right? So here first record 1 to 1 came, but here once the data flows from the transformation, the order change 231 came first, and next 121 came first, next 789 came. Suppose the basic, suppose if you use sorter transformation, or
okay,
sorter transformation, so it will sort the data in ascending or descending order. So whatever the data is there in the source table, we will sort the data. If we sort the data, the records will mismatch, right? The first one will go
right.
to last and last one will come first, right? So order will change. So these kind of things also we can call it as a active transformation. Yeah, now tell me, you are telling something.
So I was just asking for sorter transformation itself.
Okay, okay, fine.
Just as an example, I was giving the same.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay, good. Okay, now understood, right? If the records, number of records changed, then we can call it as a active transformation, or order changes, then also we can call it as a active transformation. And when we will call it as a passive transformation. So suppose here 10 records, we have 10 records. Once the data flows from the transformation, the output also we received 10 records, total number of
10
records. We don't have any change, it does not done anything. So these kind of things we can call it as a passive transformation. For example,
trans.
sequence generator.
See,
Sequence generator, what
okay.
it will do means, it will generate a sequence numbers. So whatever the available records, for suppose if you take this one, okay, if you take the same thing, same example, here we have this thing, right? For this thing, what we will do is we will generate a sequence numbers. Before that, sequence ID will be there, and then remaining things all same.
See,
One second. Sequence ID 1, and another one sequence ID 2. Next record sequence ID 3. Now this is the input before data passing to the transformation. This one after implemented the transformation. Now observe the both the things. Is there any change in the records count? No, right?
no,
So here also 3 records, here also 3 records. Same thing. Is there any change in the order of the records? No, right? We don't
no.
have any change. So these kind of transformations, if you are implementing these kind of transformations, then we can call it as a passive transformations. Passive transformation. Active transformations and then passive transformations. Clear, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one more thing,
Yes.
I wanted to